Hello again, everybody. This is Derek, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. We're going to be doing our Wargaming weekly live stream. This week I've been I guess this week I've been doing it more than once a week. Basically, whenever I get an opportunity to sit down with you guys and chat and paint or build terrain, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do it at least once a week, but it could be more, could be less, but I'm trying to do it at least once a week. I can't reach. Okay, now I can reach, but it won't open. There we go. All right, so I've started on the artillery for my Freeman's Farm scenario, as you already know. And I'm chugging along pretty good. Hopefully we'll get these done, or at least, further along, maybe done today. These are the colors that I have remaining that I need to do. We're going to jump on some hair before I do their hats. Yeah. There's really not a whole lot to do. This is a fairly small selection of figures. Yeah. But before we get started, I do want to let you know that I am working on some fencing, right? And that is probably my finished product on this fence. I don't know, you got some grass in there. You got, I spray painted this flat brown, just brown. And then I dry brushed it with a slightly lighter brown, like maybe I don't remember, but it was a slightly lighter brown. And then I dry brushed it again with an even lighter shade of brown. So it's had a couple of dry brushes. The texture, I used watered down thick mud so that it would flow better on the base, and it came out with kind of a, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like grains of sand, and the grains of sand are light toned, so it was almost like as if I would have glued sand on here and then dry brushed it with a tan. I didn't know it was going to do that, but that's a perfectly good effect. And then I went in and just put some static grass on there that I normally would do. Now remember, I don't want to do 10 rows of this fence, right? I don't want to stack 10. I think 8. This might be good for actually that size might be good for like 20 millimeter or 1/72. I probably could have gone a little taller for 28 millimeter, but that's not what I'm working with. I'm working with 15 millimeter. So I think 8. I think 8 would be the perfect size, and we might make some of that later. Okay. I should take notes on what I want to talk about, because I remember there was quite a bit that I wanted to talk about, but now I've drawn a blank. I know that, or maybe you don't know this, but one of the armies that I want to build for Meg is the Agincourt battle armies, the 100 Years' War, right? And I even have some 28 millimeter medievals as well as 15 millimeter medievals. And Wargames Atlantic has decided to come out with a the Agincourt battle, but it's going to be in 10 millimeter like their Samurai. It's going to be part of their epic battle system that they have. Basically, it means you're going to get like 200 models in a single box. Which I think is a good thing. I even considered getting them. Well, they're not out yet. They're not even ready for pre-order. Not yet, anyway. I thought about getting them because it would be a cheap alternative to 15s or 28s. But the problem is they're 10 millimeter. Meaning they're not much bigger than micro armor. If I wanted to put like 20 figures on a single base, kind of like what Warlord does with their epic line, then that might be okay. And I tried to justify it in saying that all my other Meg armies are in 15 millimeter, but it doesn't matter because the 100 Years' War is a different time period. And you would only be playing against other medievals, right? But I just don't want to paint that small of a figure. So I'm probably not going to get it for myself. I'll sell it. Now these two sticks that I'm doing on the end here are my Hessians. Now the Brunswick contingent at Freeman's Farm did not have Brunswick artillery. They had Hesse Castle. Artillery assigned to them. These guys have some long ponytails. Goes all the way down to their belt line. Okay. I'm sorry, so if I'm off camera, that's terribly sorry. It's just the way the lighting is and the way my glasses are for me to be able to see the figures. And I was hoping to get some artillery done for my boot camp. In a couple hours. What? What? This guy. I'm seeing it now. Dang it. Okay. The back side of his cuffs are painted red, but the front side I must have just missed. Hopefully this red isn't dried up. Okay, it's not. Good. And I go over the models. I double check normally to make sure I got the fronts and the backs and everything else painted. But I guess I must have missed that. Okay, well, he's taken care of. And the hair is good. Okay. Yeah, I noticed on one of the figures, I think it was a Hessian as well. The blue jacket didn't go down to the cuff. It like stopped at the elbow. And I was going, what the hell? But I fixed that. Now, when I paint the hair, I don't care if I get it on the hat because I haven't painted the hat yet. But I do care about the collar and basically the jacket and everything else. So I just have to be careful. Now these guys, the second set of sticks are Continentals. And I went to my uniforms of the American Revolution, or maybe it's uniforms of the American War of Independence. Depends on who you ask. um, it had a picture of the 4th New York. No, not the 4th, just New York Artillery. I don't know. I don't remember what number it is. Not the 4th New York. 4th New York was the infantry I just finished. But it had a picture of the New York Artillery Company. And they didn't have the red collars and cuffs and the white trousers and small clothes. They had buff straps, buff turnbacks and collars and cuffs, and so I decided I was going to make them for Freeman's Farm, or I should say the Saratoga campaign. So that's these guys. They'll have buff pants and turnbacks and the like. And because I thought it looked pretty sharp. And it'll identify them as differently than the British. Because the British and the American artillerists wore the exact same uniform. Another thing, as you know, I received the American starter set, which came with some artillery crew, and I knew I wasn't going to have enough, so I grabbed a British Old Glory British pack, and the crew from the British pack and the crew from the Continental Starter Army were the exact same models. So I just mixed them all together, and I'm using them mostly for the British. As you can see, I've got 5 sticks there. Now these are like your standard uniforms, but I see that Blue Moon makes a Saratoga artillery uniform. it comes with 12 figures. So that's 3 guns. So I think I might get 2 packs for a total of 6 guns. But it's just artillerists. It's no guns. But they do sell 6 and 3-pound artillery pieces, 2 in a pack. So if I get 3 packs of 6-pounders and 2 packs of artillery crew, I could make 6 6-pounders for Saratoga. Which would be an accurate uniform. But in the meantime, I'm doing like standard uniforms. Because there's other battles like Brandywine, Princeton, or whatever that don't use the Saratoga uniforms. And that'll just give me 6 more artillery pieces. Because I noticed in some battles I need quite a few. And because the uniforms, not the Saratoga, the standard British artillery uniforms and the Continental artillery uniforms and the guns, because they're all exactly the same, I can use the artillery for either side. But once I get those Saratoga guns in and the Saratoga crew, then it's pretty much locked in to only be British. Even though on the bottom of these I wrote British, but that's okay. Like if I give a player a battery or something, everybody will know. Because nobody's looking at the bottom of the base anyway. That's really just for me to know. Like for units and stuff, I can tell myself, oh, I did the 9th, okay. Or I look at a regiment and I can say, I wonder what regiment this is. And then look at the bottom and I say, oh, it's British. Knox's battalion or battery or whatever. And I probably should have painted those guys, this whole stick with powdered wigs. But nope, not doing it. Mainly because they might wind up being Americans. Yeah. And the New York artillery that I'm painting here is Hamilton's unit. If you didn't know, Hamilton was an artillery officer originally. Yeah, I'm not like holding my breath to have these finished by the end of the video. The reason why I say that is because even if I did all the colors, I'm still doing a wash on them. And washes, the army painter washes, take a hot minute to dry. Before, like an hour, before I start putting dull coats on. Now, most of these sticks, the, the pose of the artillery crew are the same. It just makes it easier for me to like do assembly line painting. If everybody on the stick is a water bearer. I learned something the other day, and I shared it on one of my videos. This bar that this guy is carrying is called a crow. And that's where the term crowbar came from. We're making minor adjustments in the positioning of the gun. Because guns are heavy. That bar will help somebody move the gun around. I also learned, this is something I learned today actually, researching different uniform colors and stuff, that the second in command is normally the guy that aims the gun. Not the senior, not the number one guy. The second in command that aims the gun. So I found early in the war, throughout the majority of the war, the limbers were actually civilians. And it wasn't until many years later, like 1781 or something like that, that the army started to militarize the limbers and drill them and explain to the crew and stuff how to position the guns and stuff. Because I guess early in the war, you had to explain it to the crew every time because they didn't know what they were doing. Now, the limbers that I own, I have 4 limbers, not painted or anything. I'm going to have to paint them up as civilians. Because I'm kind of doing like early mid-war. Late 1777. So they would still be civilians at that time. Things you learn when you read. Now, if you're interested in my store, on eBay, I just last night separated a bunch of models that I bought years ago that I was going to use for my projects when I was doing 28s. I got some 100 Years War stuff. And some ancient Romans. It's weird because I have these 3 Roman artillery crews. No artillery. It was weird. Like, when did I buy these and I didn't buy the artillery to go with them? I did buy an onager. That's an Old Glory, basically an Old Glory catapult. I have one of those. And I think my plan was to use the Warlord Games Scorpion from their Imperial Roman sets and replace the crew with Republican Romans. Or at least 2 of them. But I don't think I got the onager for the Romans. I think I got it for the skeletons. Because I had a skull chucker crew, but without the skull chucker. Remember the old Warhammer skeleton catapult? And I could just, or it was going to be a dwarf catapult for Oathmark. Man, I had so many uses that I could have used that onager for. I don't remember. But I'm selling it. I've got some knights. I've got some Roman triarii. Some Roman command. You know, with their Cynifer and their... what's that guy? He's a musician. He's called a... Not a Cornelius. But he's got that circular horn. And a couple officers. Separated those into packs. Got some, got a ox cart with a bunch of drivers. I have a 2-arc artillery piece. I think that might be War of the Roses. Now, 28 millimeter is great for skirmish level games. I don't think it's that good for mass battle games like Hail Caesar or Meg or Sword Point or Soldiers of Napoleon or Napoleon's Battles or anything where you got like massive troops on the table. I don't think 28 millimeter is the way to go because it tightens the battlefield up. It makes everything cramped. No room to maneuver, that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm trying to think of what color I want to do next. I think I want to do this boiler black, which is a metallic, but it's like almost, it's like super dark. And I use it on my Napoleonic wheels. And any, well, I'm sorry, my artillery wheel, not Napoleonic, my artillery wheels, as well as any bands that hold the guns together. Okay, that brush needs to be cleaned. So does that one. I want to use a fairly large brush, but not too large. Some of these I might have already used in other projects and then put them in here without washing them. With my magic potion. That'll work. All right, let's. So color-wise, I used field blue on the British. It came out really good. Okay, I hadn't stirred this yet. It's getting nothing but water. Perfect. Um, and then on the Hessians, I used a light French gray. And on the Americans, I just used a red brown. Now these tires look like the Greeball system because I'm seeing they're like knobby. Which is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Okay. Normally what I'll do is I'd paint the axle metallic as well. And any usually the wood on the trail has a band of metal wrapping around it. Um, what that does is it strengthens the wood, keeping it from splitting under use, right? Because there's a lot of kickback when that cannon fires, right? I mean, it goes without saying, but a lot of your modelers will forget to paint the band around the wood. And there's cross pieces that hold the frame spaced properly. And there are bolts that go through the frame. And those should be metal as well. Now, some of these bolts will have a plate. That plate would be metallic as well. All right. I got all the things that need to be this color painted. Now I've seen some pictures online of Hessian artillery pieces painted garish, reds and yellows, and but I also didn't want to do that. And I've seen that if they were borrowing their guns from the British, they would be painted like the British. But I did give them a slightly different color. I gave them a light French gray instead of a field gray. Not field gray, field blue. Okay. Got the axles. So I'm up to the 4th season of Turn. It's going very fast. I'm binge watching it apparently. They're about 45-minute episodes. And I'll watch 2 or 3 episodes a night. So I considered not gluing the guns down and mounting them similar to Napoleon's battles, where you got the crew on the base and then the gun is loose, so you can move it around or, turn it around, or I can have a crew and then I could drop like a 12-pounder on there or a 6-pounder or whatever I need. But then I thought to myself, I don't want to be a peasant. Let me glue my guns down. I know I'm being Harsh. Now, in the show Turn, they're talking about hanging a traitor, and where the and they reference Nathan Hale, which was a patriot that got captured by the British, and they hung him as a spy. And his last words were, "I regret that I have but one life to give." And Washington's talking to his spies. I don't remember which one he was talking to. And he said, Nathan Hale never said that. He said that was propaganda that the Continentals created, and they shared that in the papers or whatever. To give people something to rally around or whatever. And I thought, that sounds right. But I don't know if that's true or not, you know? Okay, this is a grasshopper gun from Blue Moon. And it's not exactly the same as these Old Glory cannons. I would think the concept would be the same. About binding the wood and all that. But I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to have to evaluate it a little bit closer. Okay, let me take a look at that. Okay, I think it's partially covered, not It looks like it's being held together with cotter pins. I bet you this thing was built so that it could be taken apart real quick. And it looks like the foot has a metal plate and up close to the breech. Even though this type of gun doesn't have a breech, it's a muzzle loader. But basically in that area. Hearing my neighbor pick up her trash. I already did that. I need light. I need light. Okay. Um, I'm going to paint the front. It kind of looks like it might be a plate. All right, that looks good. My neck is killing me. Leaning over these miniatures. Whoa. I also considered putting this galloper gun on a much smaller base and maybe giving it less crew just to simulate it's a galloper gun. But then I thought about it and said, nah. The rules don't say adjust the size of the base based on the size of the gun. And the rules don't care how many crew members you put on there. That's totally an aesthetic. Like whatever you think looks good. Everything's covered. Nope. The axles. Okay, that's done. My neck. My neck. Oh yeah, and I also have some sci-fi. As you know, I had Concord on there before, and that sold. And now I'm going to put some gar. I think I've I, I think I've already put some gar plastic sprues on there. They're basically the assault squads and the battle squads. But I had bought a gar starter army and assembled it. Okay. Hmm. But never got around to painting it. I assembled it and I primed some of the models. So I've decided I'm going to sell that. I saw a video where they were planning on doing like a second edition of Antares. But they have never done it. I thought the Gar battle armors looked really cool. I normally play things like the Concorde. Normally. So I had a Concorde army as well. But I didn't know anybody in this area that played. So with two armies, I could have got my friends to play. They would have just been using my figures. And there's a lot of little plates on this gun. Okay. So I've started my new commission, which is the Prussians, 172nd Napoleonics. I've already uploaded the video where I show off the French portion of the commission. One way you can tell that there is a plate that runs the length of the wood along the top. Every couple of millimeters, you'll see some divots where it looks like maybe it was nailed in or something. Done. Do this really long one. I still have my sale going. 20% off if you get 3 items or more. Free shipping if you order $50 or more. I noticed we got quite a few people watching, but nobody has made a comment. That's perfectly fine if you guys are out. Not, don't get me wrong. If you're out there lurking and just listening, and maybe you're at work and you can't reply or something, or you can't comment, perfectly fine. I'm just surprised. 'Cause normally, my audience is very chatty. But if you've been with me long enough, you probably know that it's hard for me to paint and reply to chat. So you might be doing me a favor. I appreciate it. Okay. Plate, plate, plate. Whoa, wait, what? Okay. I'm just taking a little break to give my neck a chance to recover. I'm looking at this wheel and I'm like, where did this white paint come from? But I think it's the primer underneath. And then when I painted the carriage, there's certain areas I didn't bother painting because there's going to be another color on them. Okay. Only got a couple more, and then we can move on to the next color. So, oh yeah, I was talking about guns earlier, about the size and how I was going to mount them and all that stuff. And I can swap the guns out with the crew, and if I need a 12 pounder, I can pull the 12 pounder off and or pull the 3 pounder off and put a 12 pounder down. And I looked at the rules, and the stats for a 3 pounder and the stats for a 12 pounder are exactly the same. 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12. They all have the same stats. Because the chart says 12 pound or less. So if you have a 24 pounder, that would be different. But I would think that a 24 pounder would be much bigger gun. Maybe a fortification emplacement or something. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I just went ahead and mounted the 12 pounders onto the board, and in the game we'll just call it a gun. Doesn't need to worry about if it's a 12 pounder or a 6 pounder. Now, movement, I might have to look and see if that's different. But I know firepower is pretty much the same. Because if you get hit with a gun, you're pretty much sucking. I would think that certain types of guns might have a longer range, stuff like that. But in the scope of this game, might not be even necessary to worry about it. Before I finish this one, I noticed I didn't do the axles. All right. I was getting ready to do the axles on this one, and I was like, I don't think I did the axles on the other one. And I was right. Okay. Noticing my point was starting to disappear. Okay. Double checking. Everything looks good. That color is a finito. All right. Let me take a breather. This. Okay. There's only one more color that I want to put on the guns, and then I can put them off to the side as being finished. And that's going to be bronze for the barrels. Mm, a little yawn there. Okay, I'm going to tide me over with some Welch's fruit snacks. I went to order some more of these because I'm down to my last 2 packs. And I saw that they had a berry, not a, yeah, a berry one. This is mixed fruit. The other one is a couple of berries, like strawberries and something else, blackberries. Now that it's in my mouth, I can't really talk. We're just doing the barrels. Hmm. Super thick. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, this is my favorite bronze. I have a couple other bronzes, but they look fantasy. They don't look historical. They don't look they don't look right or real. But I haven't tried every bronze, just the war paints. You can see a major difference. And I have well, that's Rule It Gold actually works pretty good. There's like a bronze. Orgoth bronze. It's too dark. This would be a prime candidate for a mixing ball. This had two of them. I'm only putting one in there. Really? It's like pulling a tapeworm out. Weird. Okay, this is going to have to get, might have to put this on my paint mixer. It was because that is super thick. That looks mixed. Okay. Okay, I don't think that's covering very well. Okay, I take it back. Thought I was going to have to paint it black first. Yep, I think I'm going to paint them black first. Hate doing it, but for the best results. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see what's going on with my bronze. I might have to reach down in there with a toothpick or something and break up if there's like large chunks in there. Speaking of toothpicks, I ordered some square toothpicks. I thought I had some square toothpicks, but they're nowhere that would be easily accessible. A lot of my terrain building stuff is in tubs. Some of it was out in the garage. I brought almost all those tubs in the house, but I'm not exactly sure where in those tubs those toothpicks would be. And those tubs are buried under all kinds of other stuff. So I said, screw it, I'll just get some square toothpicks. So I ordered some. And the reason why I needed them was for my S or zigzag fences. Not S. I guess they're more like Z. But yeah, there's like some zigzag fences I want to do. And I got some dowel rods, some square dowel rods that were 3 millimeters or 1/8 inch. They're actually 1/8 inch. So when I made my zigzag fence, that wood was like way too big. Because in the overall scheme of things, 1 millimeter is the equivalent of 6 inches. Approximately. I'm not being exact. Maybe 5 inches. Somewhere in that neighborhood. So if you take a 3 millimeter object, that's 15 inches across. And 15 inches is way too big for a wooden post. So I looked at some 1/16 sticks, and they were way too expensive. Because as you know, I don't need 100 of them. Well, I need 2 per fence if they're 12 inches long. So I need about 24 inches per fence. And I don't need 100 of them. So my mind went to, what's a cheaper alternative? Toothpicks. They're about the right dimensions, I think. We'll find out. The uprights on this are round toothpicks. And if my square toothpicks are the same diameter or width or whatever you call it, then I think they'll be okay. So once I get those square toothpicks in, I'll experiment and make some zigzag fences. Alright guys, this is where we're going to end it. It's been a couple hours. My body is telling me I need to go see the little boy's room. So I figured this is a good opportunity just to end the video. I got other videos I need to film today. Plus, before I put the bronze on here, I want the black to dry a little bit. Alright. So I'll catch you in the next one.